volunteer here as a tour guide at Peace River Wildlife Center. I'd like to take you on a tour of our non-for-profit organization. A little background information for you. We've been here over 30 years rescuing wildlife in the Port Charlotte community, and specifically here at Ponce de Leon Park in Punta Gorda, Florida. So why don't we take a little walk through and I'll show you around today. We're now in front of our Songbird Habitat. These birds are cut basically at 3 different levels in here because in the wild, songbirds do live on the ground, in the middle of the habitats, and then up at the top. So here on the ground level, we have our ground dwellers. They're eating breakfast right now, and they are usually our common doves, the rock doves. The killdeer are also on the ground. In the middle, we have our blue jays and our cardinals, and then towards the top are the loggerhead shrike, and we do have some of the woodpeckers that are red-bellied woodpeckers that live near the top of the habitat here. We try to have signage for all of the animals, so if you take a self-guided tour, you can educate yourself about the wildlife we have here in Florida. You get another better picture, maybe around this way of them. And you can see now we do have a meadowlark down here having breakfast. One of the big challenges we have as a wildlife center is they all do like to eat different things. And as you look through the habitat this morning, some of them are eating grains, some of them have fruits and vegetables, and we even have mealyworms. The loggerhead shrike actually is a meat eater, and he's given a mouse every day. So we do have to look after all the special diets that we have, and all those diets are prepared right here in our hospital area and our rehab area in the back. This way we do have our smallest owls that we have here in Florida. We're lucky here in Florida to have 5 species of owls. These little eastern screech owls are one of the smallest, along with the burrowing owls. We don't happen to have any burrowing owls, fortunately, here on permanent display at the Wildlife Center right now, but we do have the screech owls. We can see little Odie in her house here this morning, and there are a couple more of them sticking out. We have 3 now sticking out of their houses. If we walk along this way, you can see them just a little bit better. They're in their houses and on the front of their house right now. Screech owls do come in different coloration, and you can tell that from these 3 that are here. We have red, gray, and brown screech owls. Up here on this side, we do currently have a female, a little American kestrel. She is one of our glove-trained animals, and you can see she's wearing her jesses. They kind of look like shoestrings coming down from her legs. And she was injured and brought into us, and she suffered a wing injury and was unreleasable back into the wild. And she is glove trained and goes out into the community to help educate people about our non-for-profit agency we have here. These are our bald eagles that have been with us for a very long time. Here closest to me is Captain Arthur. Captain Arthur is a male, and he came to us back in 2001. He was found on the ground, unfortunately, as a young bird, had fallen out of the nest. American bald eagles are our national bird here, and so they're very protected. And when he was brought into us, unfortunately, he injured his left wing, and he lost half of that wing at that time. So he's lived with us now 19 years, his entire life. In the back, we see our female bald eagle, and we can always tell the difference in any raptor, which includes the eagles and the owls. Their sex is determined pretty much by size. He's quite a bit smaller. She's probably about 15% larger. Her neck's thicker, her beak's bigger, her chest is bigger, and that's the way that occurs in nature. Bill Fred has been with us for over 20 years. She came to us in 1996. She was a young bird as well at that time, about 2 years of age. She was found in our local landfill, and her wing was damaged so severely, an infection had set in so strong that our doctor at the time and our founder, Dr. Gingrich, was unable to heal that wing, and she lost her entire left wing at that time. So this habitat was built specifically for her when she came to us with this laddering system. Their wingspan is over 6 foot, and with half of that missing, we knew that that would help her get down to her food that we give to her every day on the ground. They're scavengers, so they like to get things off the ground, and to her back. And Captain Arthur is talking to us, and he certainly takes advantage of that as well. Having lost part of that wing, these ladders assist them with their balance and being able to move about in their habitat. Just gorgeous animals, and you can really appreciate when you're this close to them the strength of their talons and their beaks. And it is those talons that you really need to be careful of. They will come after you if they wanted to with the talons and not their beak so much. And when they're fighting and protecting their nest, that's what they use. He's been talking all morning. These are the two most common kind of hawks we have here in this part of Florida. The one giving us a nice sassing right now, you can always tell that that is a red-shoulder's voice. They are very vocal in the community, out in the wild. And the little Cooper's hawk is below here. They're not quite so loud and boisterous, but they're a little tough to tell the difference of them in the wild. But these two do live in habitats similar to each other. As you can see, this little guy in front of us, the Cooper's hawk, is a little bit of a narrower bird. His backside is entirely gray, and his tail is much longer and thinner than the red-shouldered above. And the red-shouldered also has a much brighter red chest. These two hawks in the wild would be in competition with each other, but here at the Wildlife Center, since we take such very good care of them and they have all the food and all the water and care that they need, they can coexist in this very large habitat that we have for them. Sometimes people want to know what we feed our animals. These in particular like to have mice and baby chicks, and we spend more than $85,000 a year simply on food, and that doesn't include any medical care. And that, as a non-for-profit agency, that's why our donations are so important to us. This is our shorebird area here at Peace River Wildlife Center, and these birds all would live near each other in the wild. They're mostly wading birds. We have right in front of us now our roseate spoonbill. It's kind of funny, as we give tour, most of our children want to call this bird a flamingo. And I have to remind them, in this part of Florida we don't have flamingo, but the roseate spoonbill does get its coloration the same way that flamingos do, by what they eat and how they drink. You can get a very good look at that beautiful spoon on his bill shape there, and that is exactly how he got his name. You can tell this little guy was injured. He was actually rescued up in the Venice area, and the Venice Sanctuary gifted him to us. He has a very displaced right elbow and is unable to have full flight, and that's why he's had been a permanent resident with us for over 4 years now. These guys on the ground right now, we have some black-crowned night heron. We have this is a ring-billed, and over here we have the snowy egret. The snowy has the only one with yellow feet and the upturned tip of its tail. That snowy species, and if we look towards the middle of the habitat, we do have a great egret there. They were hunted nearly to extinction back in the 1800s as people harvested them for the use of those beautiful feathers for ladies' hats. We do have a little Maurice on the bottom down here. He's a special guy to us. He is a common gallinule. And you can see the very red face that he has. And his feet are a little different also. Some people like to call them a coot, but they are a gallinule. They just a little bit different in coloration, and their feet are quite a bit different. He doesn't have any bulbs on his feet to help him in the water, where the coot is more of a water bird. Stop here next. Right in front of us, this little duck in here is actually a very unusual bird. It's called a snowy mallard, and it's a combination of a couple of different kind of ducks that were bred and raised on the farms. And it's a very good example of how invasive species can harm habitat. These guys have started to take over the wild areas that are really for our model ducks. And so as an invasive species, when we get them here at the Wildlife Center, we would never release them back into the wild. So this little duck, we call her, she has taken up permanent residence with us for probably about 4 years now. So she's adorable, gets along very well with the rest of the habitat. As we talked about in our songbird area, these birds have all just been fed their breakfast. And you can see, again, there's just a wide variety of food in the habitat, and that's how we make sure we take care of them, making sure that they have the proper food for them. There are certainly fish these are yellow-crowned night heron here, and they love the little sardine fish. We have the laughing gulls off to the back, and they're going to eat fish and some of the vegetables that we have. And then we also have grains in this area, and even scrambled eggs, believe it or not, that they eat at times. This habitat was built for them with the beautiful waterfalls and the water, so that they can have a wonderful life with us here. This little guy is an eastern screech owl, but we saw some eastern screech owls over here just a little bit ago, and they were entirely brown or red. Luna is very special. He was brought to us as about a 3 or 4 week old screech owl, and after we had him here a short period of time, over 7 years ago now, believe it or not, he came to us. We realized he didn't have any coloration in his feathers as he developed. He's called a leucistic screech owl, and he will never have any color in his feathers. It's different from being an albino. If he were a true albino, his eyes would be entirely red, and his feet would be red too. Luna's eyes actually look black, but they're really clear if you look at them from the side, because you're looking at it forward, you're seeing the blood vessels in the back of his eye. On the close-up there, you could see that he was wearing his jesses. He is a glove-trained ambassador for us as well. He was really our first ambassador that we had that really brought to the community what we did here at Peace River Wildlife Center. Unfortunately for eastern screech owls, they are at the bottom of the food chain for these little guys. Their lifespan is only about 3 years in the wild. So we're very, very fortunate that we have him with us, and he's so healthy and happy as he lives here with us. Move along a little bit here, and we have definitely a beautiful owl here. She's off to the right side of her habitat right now. This is Bella. Bella is 6 years old now, and she came to us as a very young bird after a very unsuccessful attempt to release her back into the wild. She had become very imprinted by individuals that were caring for her as a young bird, and when they tried to release her, she really had no idea how to hunt and care for herself. In fact, with a wingspan of 5 foot, she was flying into people's, onto their lanais and near their homes, looking for mice for dinner because she was so used to being fed mice by individuals. So fortunately for Miss Bella, she was re-rescued, and she came to us to live out her years. She will be, may live up to 20 or more years old. She is one of the best examples we have of how the community really needs to be educated about how to take care of an animal that they find by not caring for it by themselves, but bringing it to Peace River Wildlife Center, where we know how to care for those animals. We actually wear ghillie suits and masks to prevent them from recognizing us as people. So when we do have our successful releases, because of that. So she's just a beautiful bird. In general, great horned owls are the apex hunter of all. They are even above eagles. They are known to prey on eagles' nests, ospreys' nests, but they are not nest builders themselves. They never build their own nests. They steal the nest usually from the eagles, and then those eagles are displaced and need to find new territory. Just gorgeous bird. And she, again, is a glove-trained ambassador for us, and one of the best ambassadors we have. She is a little feisty, being that apex hunter that she is, but once she's on that glove, she's quite a good girl. Walk along the boardwalk here. This is the third kind of hawk we have in this part of Florida. It's kind of at the back of the habitat, but I do have one sleeping up front right now. These are red-tailed hawks, and they're the largest hawk we have here in Florida. They are found throughout the country of the United States, as are many of our animals here. There are slight adaptations that happen in the heat of Florida, but they mostly are very common up north, and as the further south you get, they become a little less common. These two have been together for quite a long time now. and just gorgeous animals, and as I mentioned, the largest hawk we have here in Florida. These are our fish crows here. We have 3 currently. They're just gorgeous birds. They're very common here in Florida. They have a very unusual talk that they say, but our little spirit here in the front is particularly interesting because when she was rescued, she was kept at home for a while, and she learned a language. And now at almost 17 years of age, she continues to want to say hi to almost everybody who comes by. I'm not sure she's going to talk to us this morning, but she's just a beautiful little bird. They like to be in flocks together, so the fact that we have 3 here at this time is very good. Our male, Edgar, has been with us several years as well. Edgar came to us. Unfortunately, he was found in a kitty's mouth. Cute story about that, though, is the girls that brought him in, I actually toured a couple years ago, and they told me about the fish crow they rescued, and they said, we called him Edgar. And I had to walk them down here immediately because Edgar is still with us today, and you can see is very, very healthy and happy being here with us. We do have a couple of Bardows here that we're walking past. And then we'll take a little stop here at our black and turkey vultures that we have here. Right now, right down in the front, we have the black vulture, and all the way to the very back resting is our other black vulture. Both of these vultures suffered visual deficits out in the wild and were unreleasable back into the wild. Everybody has a little bit different story as to why they're here, but the fact is that they've been here a long time with us. We call them Stevie and Ray, and because their vision is impaired, we don't change their habitat at all. We recognize the fact that they need to know where their water is, where their food's going to be every day. We have different textures for them to be able to feel their way around, and so they've done extremely well. The turkey vulture's in the front right now as well, the one with the red head here. Some people like to call the same bird, but turkey vultures actually, we're in the summer months here in Florida now. They're not here in Florida this time of year. Turkey vulture are migratory and migrate up into the Midwest mostly, and then they return to Florida for the winter months. Our population of vulture almost doubles during the winter season because of the existence of the turkey vulture here. Beautiful birds, huge wingspans, and very important in the wild to take care of the carrion that are found on the roadways or out in the wild. This is one of our little Bardows. He's one of our newest additions. He's a very young Bardow. He was born in the spring, and unfortunately for him, he suffered a damage to his wing, and he's been unreleasable into the wild. But he is being trained as one of our glove-trained animals, and I've been told that he's been very successful with his training. There he goes. Such a pretty baby. So he's going to be a wonderful addition to our community of ambassadors here. And I just can't not say enough how important these ambassadors are to us as we are out in the community, at the festivals, at the schools, in the libraries, the history society. No matter where we go, these guys tell the story and why it's important for people to be educated on how to take care of wildlife in the community. Okay. This is Orion, and he is another barred owl. He's been with us 3 years now. He is, like Bella, a good example of when the community thinks they're doing the right thing to help wildlife, how it can go very wrong kind of quickly. He was found on the ground up in the Venice area, and the Venice Sanctuary was called in. They put the baby back into the nest very successfully. And I think most people don't realize they have very little sense of smell. And so people think that, oh, we touched the baby, mommy and daddy are going to take that baby and just abandon it. But what happens truly is there is no sense of smell, and those parents had no idea this baby had been touched. But unfortunately, there was a woman in the community who started to feed Orion. And she fed him so much that the parents did at that point leave the nesting area. And I don't think she really recognized it as a problem until she realized that she didn't know what to do with Orion anymore. And she called the Venice Sanctuary, and they asked us if we would like to have him as one of our ambassadors here. And so he's been a wonderful ambassador for us now. His birthday is February the 14th, so he's our Valentine boy, and he is the sweetest bird that you've ever seen. He just wants to get on the glove and come out and be with people. Absolutely gorgeous. We are now currently in our open, as you can see, Pelican habitat. This has been kept open. We do get company that comes in and out, and people often ask, well, how do you keep your birds in there? Well, unfortunately, we're looking mostly at brown pelican right now, and brown pelicans' injuries usually happen to their wings. We do have a very large fishing community here, and the lines become entangled on the birds, and it causes such damage to their wings that they're unable to fly. So none of our animals that live here permanently are able to fly. That's why we do have the habitat with the enclosure in the back. There are some pelicans still in there from nighttime. They are set into the locked area every evening to protect them from predators. We need to be sure that the bobcats or coyotes can't get into them since they don't have flight. We do have a few visitors here today, and that's all right. They come in and out and come and go. I recognize a juvenile over there. Brown pelicans, when they're adults, have the white that you see on the top of their head right now. In breeding season, that turns kind of yellow. But there's a juvenile off to the back who has no coloration on him at all, and that's because he's still too young. As he becomes more of an adult and more breeding age, they get more of the coloration that you can see. Their coloration this time of year is very pale, not very attractive, but in the breeding season is when they really show off. Right now we're looking at our beautiful male white pelican. Here in North America, there are two species of pelican, the browns that you see off to the right here, and the whites. Whites are quite a bit different than browns. Browns are non-migratory. They live here in Florida all year round. Where our white pelicans are migratory, they migrate as far as Manitoba to have their young up in Canada and in northern parts of the United States. This guy came to us quite a few years ago. We do think a motorboat hit him. You can see he is missing his right wing. By the time he came to us, that wing was so damaged and almost completely amputated already that we did have to amputate his wing. Unfortunately for him, he did have to stay with us, but we're very lucky to have him. He does have a partner. She's off to the back right now, a female, who also suffered wing injury. One of the big differences is their size. You can tell these brown pelicans are quite a bit smaller. They only weigh about 9 pounds. Where this guy here today in front of us probably weighs 16 or 17 pounds. The other difference is how they hunt. Brown pelicans are known to be magnificent divers. They fly maybe even 2 stories up high into the air, diving down onto the water, hitting the water so hard that it stuns the fish, and then they grab that fish and eat it. White pelican, on the other hand, he's taking a little swim around the pond here now. They hunt quite a bit differently. They hunt together as a flock. They will get together 10 or 12 of them into the shallow areas. They like to live out on the sandbars because they will sit on the top of the water, take their big wingtips and those huge feet that you saw earlier on the rock here, and they school the fish up onto the shallow areas, and then sitting on the top of the water, they simply start grabbing those fish off the top of the water. Brown pelicans need to eat about 4 pounds of fish every day, and whites nearly double that. So again, you can see why our needs are so great here. We have more than a dozen brown pelicans that live here, and so they eat fish 3 times a day to make up for their diets while they're here. Right in front of us as well, you see we do have 2 little cormorants in front of us. The one's resting with his head tucked under his wingtip. That's very typical of how birds like to rest, but you can see certainly the one towards the back, his beak has a little hook on the end of it, and that's how when they dive down under the water, they grab a single fish, bringing it back to the surface and turning it head down and swallowing it whole. You can see he does have a left wing injury, probably again due to that fishing line. There's another bird in this part of Florida that looks very similar called the anhinga. The anhinga looks very much alike, except for it does not have that hook on the end of its beak. It has large barbs that run down its beak, and it uses those barbs to dive down, catch a single fish, and bring it to the top of the water. They're absolutely magnificent hunters. In China, they do use them as a way of catching fish for the table. They put a little ring around the neck, they allow the bird to dive down, getting the fish, they take the fish from it, and at the very end of the day, they're allowed to eat their fish for the day. They're one of the oldest ways of fishing in the Asian countries. Just beautiful birds. This is our beautiful, beautiful Sandhill Crane. He's a boy, and he's been with us for 7 years. He came to us as a baby, and you can see as he comes right towards me, he has a crossed or scissored beak, which happens sometimes in the wild. And then unfortunately, oh, it's a snake he sees, and he doesn't like snakes. It's snakes on the tree. Anyway, he came to us because of that crossed beak. In the beginning, it's a little rat snake we're filming right now. They're very common. We're right here in the mangroves here in Ponce de Leon Park. This is a young one. It's not very big. If Chicky were to see him, he probably would take after them. Snakes do eat their eggs, and they do not like them very much. So we might distract Chicky and have him keep looking this way towards us. But you can see that beak. 7 years ago when he came in with a sibling. And unfortunately, the sibling had been caught in barbed wire, and he perished. But we were able to keep Chicky with us. After he was with us a short time, we did realize his right ankle, and I know it doesn't look like an ankle, it looks more like a knee, but those are actually ankles, was damaged. And he had a torn ACL. We must have played football along the line somewhere, I guess, but we did call in a specialist, and that specialist did fix his ankle. You can see it is a little bit larger than the other ankle that he has, but he gets along very well. Just a gorgeous bird. He has been with us, like I mentioned, 7 years now, and enjoys every bit of it. You might ask, can he eat and drink on his own? Yes, he can. We do take a Dremel tool and actually file his beak for him about every 2 weeks. And once that beak is filed, a little shorter every time, it regrows, but in between, he can eat and drink on his own. Some of his favorite things are small fish and mealyworms. Pretty boy. We're now here with our beautiful osprey. Ospreys are oftentimes confused in a very quick glance with the bald eagle. As you can see, it does have a whitish head, but it does have that beautiful band that runs down its eyes. Talking to us right now, it has a very distinctive voice. Oftentimes, myself, and I encourage people to use the Cornell University site. If you can listen to the voices on that to help you identify birds that you may not be able to visualize, but you can hear them. This bird definitely has a very distinctive voice. They are basically a fish hawk or fish eagle because they do hunt fish, and they're very good at it. All raptors have 4 talons, 3 in the front and 1 in the back. But these guys have a special trick that they can do. They can rotate one of their talons to the back, so they have 2 in the front and 2 in the back, which makes it much easier for them to hold on to their fish when they dive down and grab it out of the water. 1 out of 4 times they're able to catch a fish, where our poor bald eagles, which aren't very good fishermen, only 1 out of every 10. Bald eagles are known to be unrelentless in chasing down the osprey with their fish, going after them with those strong talons that we saw earlier in the video, and knocking the fish out of the osprey's talons so that they can then take and steal the fish. But these guys are a wonderful part of our community. They do not mate for life. Osprey males actually are the keepers of the nests. And every season he attracts a new female to his nest by encouraging her to follow him to his nest for the fish. I've heard that story before. But anyway, just a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. I'd like to thank you for coming to see us here in this virtual tour at Peace River Wildlife Center. Had a great time showing you around today. Just want to remind you that we are a non-for-profit agency, and we encourage you to go to the link at the end of this video if you'd like to and donate to us so that we can continue to care for the wildlife that we have here at Peace River Wildlife Center. Thank you.